Despite only making up 1% of the ocean, coral reefs are vital for a plethora of reasons. They are the home to roughly 25% of the planet's marine life and provide societal, cultural, and economic services that are heavily relied upon. There are so many different factors that influence and shape a coral reef, but for now, let's just focus on the physical aspects. When discussing physical impacts on the reef, they can be split into two different categories: press stresses or pulse stresses. A press stressor is ongoing and can cause problems over time, like the slow rise in sea level, whereas a pulse stressor is more of a phenomenon or sudden change. Regarding physical impacts on the reef, pulse stresses are much more prevalent. An example of a high-impact pulse stressor is blast fishing, in which explosives are used to kill fish. Naturally, this destroys the pristine coral habitat that the fish resides in, creating an uninhabitable rubble that sustains nothing but the reminder that humans suck a lot. The worst of the physical pulse impacts that can occur are storms, or more specifically, cyclones. On the Great Barrier Reef alone, between 1995 and 2009, close to 34% of all coral mortality was in direct relation to storms. Cyclones are able to smash through coral, decimating ecosystems, and whilst they can be predicted, they cannot be contained. On a lower scale, but still an important physical impact on reefs, is direct human contact with coral. Whether it's accidentally, via divers kicking the reef or reef walking, or intentionally, via researchers or collectors, coral does not typically appreciate being kicked, snapped, or stolen. With 30% of the world's reefs contributing to economy from tourism, there are bound to be casualties. Heron Island is a haven for coral reef systems due to its allocated protected areas. By mitigating its exposure to tourists and researchers, it is able to promote the conservation of the reef. However, there are still physical stresses taking place that can be ranked in terms of its impact on the reef systems. The stresses with the most physical impacts present on the island are humans' direct contact with coral, specifically reef walking and accidental reef kicking. Reef walking is a popular tourist and research activity, and over time, clear paths have been forged by the repetitive trampling of coral. As shown, these walking tracks sustain little to no life, which is unfavourable to biodiversity of the coral and the species that call it home. Reef kicking, as mentioned, is rather inevitable with the flow of visitors year-round and can cause harmful and unwanted fragmentation of coral. The jetty breakwall, whilst necessary, is the second most contributing factor to physical stress on the island. On the one side, it allows the safe passage of boats to and from the island, but it also acts as a physical barrier that prevents the natural ecological function of the reef. As shown, there is clear difference in coral health and population on either side. A complete loss of coral in error may seem worse than some trampled coral, but the system has shown resilience, making use of the anthropogenic structure and lessening the impact severity. HMAS Protector is a shipwreck on the island that acts as a breakwater, protecting the shore. Aside from the initial pulse stress of being tugged and sunk at the island, displacing ecological communities and changing the dynamics of the system, the wreck is more of a press stressor. The slow disintegration of the wreck poses physical risk to the coral that has situated itself on and below, and there are risks of ion contamination and encouraged pathogen invasion. However, corals and sponges are prevalent on the wreck, creating a haven for populations of larger aquatic species that cannot be sustained by a reef close to the shore due to the tides. Unfortunately, the physical stresses on coral reefs at Heron Island revolve around the same thing the world does, and in order to protect the reef, income and funding is vital. It's just like they say, with great biodiversity comes great tourism. If the heaviest stresses at Heron Island are of a smaller scale than the reef stresses worldwide, then the future seems bright for this conservation sanctuary.